Hello, everyone. This is Nicholas Luna, the host of the Practical Entrepreneur Show, a show that shares local entrepreneur stories about their journeys and success about being a small business owner. And welcome back to the show. Today's guest is Brandi Carlos, the founder of Therapy for Latinx. She goes into her story why she created the website, that she is a small business slash entrepreneur who was born and raised in East LA, since that doesn't happen all the time. I hope you enjoyed the show. Make sure to subscribe, share, write a review, please, on iTunes that lets other people know about the show. This show provides really good content for people who are looking to start their own business and breaks it down to its practical ways. Enjoy the show. Cool. Alrighty. So we are here with the lovely Brandi. She is a... Call yourself an entrepreneur?
I feel like I wear a lot of hats. I usually say I'm a serial entrepreneur, digital strategist, and mental health advocate.
Very cool. So we met at the Level Up workshop in Facebook 3 weeks ago? 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, that went by fast.
Wow, that was really fast. Well, the cool thing is, Brandi came up to me because she asked me about insurance, but this is, I guess, my favorite part of being an entrepreneur is Brandi was sharing her story, how she was looking for a website where she can find Hispanic or Latinx therapists.
Yeah.
She couldn't find it. She found an African-American one,
Directory?
right?
Yeah.
And she's like, wow, okay. So then, she created it because she felt that it would help out other people, not knowing that the demand was so much.
Yeah.
So she solved the problem, and now she has a lot of good problems, which is a lot of traffic to the site and people asking her a lot of questions that she couldn't handle, especially about insurance. But anyways, Brandi, that's my story of you. But go ahead and give us a little background and let them know, what you're about, where you're from, and what gets you up at night.
Cool.
Oh, what gets you up in the morning to work?
For me, it's at night. I'm a big night owl. But I always like to share that I'm born and raised in East LA. Because a lot of people don't hear stories of entrepreneurship or business in our communities. So, I grew up here. My grandmother raised my brother and I, and she used to be a seamstress. So we would see her wake up at like 3 in the morning to go to these bathing suit factories where they would make a lot of product for, before it was some, I don't remember the line. I know it's called like OP Swimwear or something. But eventually it grew into Target, right? So a lot of the swimsuits for Targets are I don't know about now, but in like the 90s were made by señoras. And so, I always grew up seeing my grandmother work really hard. Like she would leave the house at 3 in the morning when it was still dark. Somehow she would make it back home like around the time we got out of school, and I would see her make dinner and, still take care of us. I don't know. Now that I'm older and I look back, I have no idea how she did it.
And we complain about such little things, and like you see the older people who are just like, you guys have it so easy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy because that's a lot of stories of here of this type of neighborhood. Unfortunately, you guys can't see it, but in the background is a nice view of LA. I will somehow, some way, like show you guys. But we're going to be very, what's the word? God, I can't think of the word. Selfish and enjoy it ourselves. Very cool. So your grandma, do you think that kind of, that seeing your grandma go through that, did that kind of instill some work ethic?
Yeah. I think work ethic and it was the baseline for me to become an entrepreneur because I saw her and all I've ever wanted to do in my life is like give back to her in some way, seeing that she did so much for us.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Now, you said you were born and raised in East LA.
Mm-hmm.
Did you leave East LA at any time to go to college, or did you stay with the neighborhood and go to like?
I didn't. So I actually dropped out of high school. A
Okay.
lot of people don't know that. I actually shared that this weekend, which to me is important to share because I think if you're the type of person that college works for you, then that's great. For me, not that it didn't, but I think I just didn't have the opportunity. So my senior year, my grandmother and my godmother went to Mexico, and my godmother got really sick. She ended up being in the hospital for like 2 years. And so at the time I had gotten like a weekend job at Starbucks. And so I would work there on the weekends, go to school. But it got to the point where my grandma couldn't fly back and forth, right? And so they turned the lights off. And my brother and I kind of had to figure out how to survive. So I was working at Starbucks, and I would bring home like the leftovers. And that's how we got through. And so eventually I dropped out, and I started working full time to take care of both of us.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
How did you, where did you find the time, or where did you learn how to, I guess, develop websites? Because I know that's what you do.
Yeah. So after high school, I really wanted to become a makeup artist. So I was like, I don't know how, but I'm going to do it. And so I started buying products and reading books. But it was like before YouTube
Got it.
was a thing. So I taught myself how to do makeup. And it was around the time Facebook was like starting to develop. And at the time, there was a website called Model Mayhem. And so it was kind of like a Facebook, but just for photographers, models, makeup artists, and stylists. And so everybody would go on there to either find jobs or trade shoots. And so, I started going on there, and I learned really quickly how to market myself on Facebook. And so between, learning all the social media stuff and learning to network my business and becoming a makeup artist, I realized like, hey, this social media stuff, there's something to it, and that kind of got the ball rolling. And from there, I learned how to do websites first on like Wix or Squarespace. And then eventually I was able to learn how to do WordPress sites. And that was the start of it.
Wow. Okay, so you kind of started off of just playing around with social media?
Yeah.
Did you ever create any of those cool backgrounds for MySpace?
I was going to say, that's actually how I started to learn how to code. Was I wanted like glitter on my MySpace profile. Yeah.
I'm thinking about it. I remember watching something on the news about some girl that was designing MySpace pages. That wasn't you, was it?
No.
Okay. I was like, am I literally talking to the girl that was on the news? I'm like,
no.
How cool is that? So you wanted to learn how to put glitter on the back of your MySpace page, so you learned it. So that was the start of it.
Yeah.
When did it become like a full-on like career?
So I feel like from 18 to 23, I really got into makeup, and I was doing really well. I got to the point where I was doing makeup for a lot of hip hop videos. Like, I think one of the biggest artists I worked with was like Tyrese at the time, and so being on set though for hip hop, I just didn't like the energy. I'm very introverted, and I feel like I'm very energy sensitive, and so being around like things like drugs or women not being treated well is not my jam. So I think one of the last photo shoots I did was it was a photo shoot somewhere in like the Hollywood Hills, and it was for a modeling agency in Beverly Hills. The whole crew was there. We were waiting for over 2 hours for the model to show up. She finally does, and she's about 16. She sits on my chair, and she still had a Coke in her nose. And I that was kind of like it for me. I was like, this isn't what I want to be around. And I know other people have had, good experiences in the makeup industry, but for whatever reason, that's what manifested for me at the time, right? And so from there, I realized, I was like, I've had a lot of family and friends ask me to set up their Facebook pages. like maybe I should kind of look into that.
Okay.
So I think my first major job was I ended up being a director of marketing for Century 21 in Torrance, and I just built my business from there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very cool. Now, go ahead and let people know, I guess, the name of your site and what the site, how it, what it, I'm not going to say, but like, what's the community that it serves?
Okay, so the website is Therapy for Latinx, and it really serves. I feel like if I get geeky and get into the demographics, it's like ages 18 to 45, people that identify as Latinx or Hispanic, and are looking for therapists or mental health resources that have people that like speak our language, understand our culture. 'Cause there's something about being able to go to therapy and being able to code switch, right? Where you can go back and forth or be like, I'm really frustrated with my mom. She told me this, and then you could speak in Spanish and not having to break it down for your therapist. I think it's hard or challenging when you go to see maybe like a white therapist that doesn't understand our culture, right? Or doesn't realize like, why do you care so much what your entire family thinks about your decisions? Where like, that's how we function. Like we grow up very codependent in a lot of ways, right? Where like, it's not just the decisions you make about your life, but you kind of learn at an early age to take into consideration, like, how is this going to affect like my siblings or my parents, especially if you're, let's say, like the oldest and you're kind of that person that translates paperwork for your family, right?
I'm that person.
Yeah, same.
I think that's all of us. Like,
Yeah.
I got a text message last night, like, "Hey Nick, have you seen this before?" I'm like, I'm like, wow, like, it's like he's filling out paperwork for his parents, and I'm just like, no, I've never seen that form before, but I'm just like, yeah, I think that's like our generation's job.
Yeah.
To do that for our parents.
Yeah.
And what can you say? Because I know you said it. You didn't want to get geeky, but at 18 to 45, when you first developed the site, what were your intentions? Was it just did you see a void, or did it just something for yourself?
No. Oh my God. So what happened was February of last year, I had lost a business I had built, right? So I had built tax offices with my business partner. Okay. And we had 8 offices and 60 employees throughout like East and South LA. And overnight, we had a huge falling out, and I was actually living back at my grandmother's house, which was so weird. But I found myself like, on the couch and trying to figure out like, okay, how do I get past this, like emotionally, financially, and pretty much start over. And so I wasn't in the best place. And in the middle of all of that, I get a phone call, and I found out that one of my best friends had passed away from suicide.
Okay.
Yeah. And so that was really hard. We knew each other since we were 16, and he was kind of like the person in my life that I could talk about my own mental health with unapologetically, right? And where there wasn't that judgment or like, anything weird. And so losing him was really hard on me. And like on top of what I was already dealing with, that really kind of pushed me over the edge. So I was really struggling, and I remember like texting my aunt. I was like, I need help. And I'm someone that I don't ask for help, or it's really challenging for me to ask for help. So for me to reach out, I knew I was like, okay, I'm really not in a good place. And so I started looking online for resources. And again, being the person in the family that's kind of like the translator or that bridge to resources in our community, I couldn't find anything. And I thought to myself, like, if I can't find it, and I'm really good with tech, how is anybody else? Or how is someone who is Spanish speaking only, or someone that just migrated to the country, And I thought about also like my grandma. I was like, my grandma, there's no way she'd be able to
Yeah.
find anything, right? And so I was like, just kind of that frustration stood with me. And then as I was searching, I did come across therapyforblackgirls.com, which was founded by Dr. Joy, who's out in Atlanta. So she's in Georgia. And I thought like, this is so great. And again, like another way that I feel like a lot of Black women in our community are really like big thought leaders, right? And like innovation and really like a lot of community organizing. I was like, this is so brilliant. Like, I'm sure there's something like this for Latinas or for the Latinx community. But when I searched, nothing existed. And so I was like kind of reflecting on that experience of finding hers, feeling frustrated. And I was like, let me check if the URL is available. So when I checked therapyforlatinx.com and it showed up that it was available, I was like, oh, nobody is
Doing this.
you know? So I bought the URL and I kind of took that as a sign that like I had to build this website,
Got it.
right? And so I purchased the URL and I think because I was grieving, I was very isolated, so I wasn't really talking to anyone. And I just kind of started working on the website. And I think the last page I left was, even like at a unconscious level, I left About Us to the very last.
Okay.
And when I started filling out that page and like writing my story, that's when I realized that that's how I was coping with my loss.
I was just going to ask you, Mike, do
Yeah.
you think because of your loss and you found something that you can obviously create to help other people who are going through your situation that allowed you to focus
Yeah.
and get it done?
Yeah. So I had like this whole moment of like crying and realizing like, oh, this is how I dealt with it. And so I finished that page and, I did like a quick Facebook post and I was like, hey guys, I made this website, not really thinking it would take off as quickly as it did. But I remember like I shared it and I just told people like, hey, if you know any therapists, like send them my way. I didn't know one therapist at the time, like in my circle of friends. And so people just kind of started tagging other people and it grew really quick.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
It's a good problem to have.
Yeah.
Now, I'm barely new to hearing the word Latinx.
Yeah.
I was talking to my buddy the other day, and he's just like, you use that word one more time and I'm going to slap you. And he's a marketer. So
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know what it is. Like, I
Yeah.
go, what is Latinx? Like,
Yeah.
what's the meaning behind that?
So I feel like I get the mindset of people that are frustrated about it, right? Because I remember even for me, when I first heard the term, I wrote a post saying like, oh God, you guys are changing it again. Like, what does this one mean, right? And because I remember it changing from like Hispanic to Latin to like Latino and like Chicano, like just hearing all these terms, but not always knowing like why. And so I remember posting it and then someone explaining why, and I felt like such a jerk, right?
I'm guilty of that. I've done that so many times where I give someone a hard time and then I'm like, oh, okay, I feel like a jerk.
Yeah. So I wrote that, and I wrote that not really saying that it was like dumb or anything, but to me, I just felt more of like left out of like, who's deciding the terminology change, and like, how can I understand it, right? And so I remember posting that, and then someone was like, hey, it's actually because it's supposed to be gender neutral. So like the word Latina is for women to identify, and the word Latino is for men to identify, right? So what about if you're in between, you're gender fluid, or you just don't identify as either one? And once I understood that, I just felt like, of course I would use the term Latinx. Like, why wouldn't I, right? Because using that term is to be inclusive. It's not to force people to identify in a certain way. So, like, I use the term Latinx, but I identify as a Latina, right? So I think that's the other part that people might not understand. Like, I know recently Mecha changed their slogan or
I heard about that.
Yeah. And so a lot of like Twitter went crazy and they're like, you're not going to tell me how to identify. And it's like, we're not telling you how to identify. We're just saying like, hey, be inclusive.
That sounds like Twitter.
Yeah, I know. I feel like Twitter is like the armpit of the internet. It's
Oh
horrible.
my God. It's people will find anything to complain about.
Yeah.
It's just ridiculous. I
Yeah.
mean, you'll have, what was it the other day? I think it was just a message someone got. They're like, oh, someone complained about this. I'm just like, there's always that one person or that group of people.
Yeah.
You can't please everybody.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Well, okay.
Yeah.
So you're not telling people how to identify. You're just being neutral about it.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay.
Yeah.
So I can get that because my buddy's a marketer, and of course they see a catchy word or, and they abuse it, right? Other people who will abuse it. Oh, Latinx. And it's just like, all right, dude, like we get it. Like you found like a buzzword or something that's trendy and you want to use that.
Yeah.
I get it. But you're just like, no, it's just for everyone. So you're not kind of keeping anyone out. Like if you're in the Latinx community, this is your home.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Makes a lot of sense. Now, what are some of the common questions that you get from your website as far as, when people are looking for therapists? Like what are things that you see the most?
I feel like the biggest one is they just don't even know where to start. Even though like my website, it's kind of like in a Yelp style where you can search by location, like what's nearest to you. But then people are like, okay, after that, what? So, I think because in our community, a lot of us are the first to go to therapy. Mm-hmm. We don't have that person that we could be like, hey, what was your experience like? I always tell people, like, if you decided today that you wanted to start going to the gym tomorrow, I promise you there are 3 people you can text in your phone right now to be like, hey, how do I sign up for the gym? What machines do I use? What kind of exercise?
What do you recommend? Should I get a trainer?
Yeah,
all that stuff.
And there's a lot of point of references that you have in your life that you can find quickly, right? But if I tell you like, hey, ask your friend how they found their therapist, you're going to have to think about it. In our community, it's not as common, right? And so for me, I know like anytime I'm trying something new, I really like to be able to ask someone like, hey, what was your experience like? So I feel it's the same with therapy. And so people want to know, like, how much does it cost? How often should I go? How do I know if I have the right therapist? Insurance is a whole, like...
You don't got to tell me about that.
Yeah, we could do a whole episode on, like, just insurance questions.
Yeah.
Where people don't, like... It's crazy to me that people pay for insurance, like, every 2 weeks and don't even know what it gives them, right?
Yeah.
Like, a lot of people are like, oh, yeah, I pay for insurance, but,
I don't use it.
I don't use it. Yeah, they won't even go get a physical or anything like that. And so there's a lot of questions that I get every day. And it really varies. Like, it's hard because there's days where, like, I'll get messages from people that are in, like, some kind of mental health crisis.
Oh, wow.
And so, yeah, I obviously try to prioritize those, right? And so, there's people that are just not in a good place and... really need support. And then there's people that are just like, want to know more about finding a therapist, or it's their first time going, or they had a bad experience with a previous therapist. And now they're like, okay, well, I kind of want to try it again. Got it. So where do I start? Yeah.
Cool. Have you ever thought about doing this? Because I know I listened to a podcast called Roommates, and these guys are super dope. And they talk a lot about mental health, and they're 2 guys. One's Nigerian. I don't know where the other one's from.
Yeah.
And they're really good about, or really want to build a community, right? Yeah. So they started a Patreon, and I had advised them like, hey, have you guys ever thought of starting a Facebook group? So because what you mentioned was, like when I went to therapy.
Yeah.
The only reason why I went to therapy was because one of my fraternity brothers posted on our Facebook page. He's like, hey, guys, blah, 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 blah. I know you guys may be going through some stuff. Get therapy. It helps. We all have issues. And this was like in 2012 when he did that. Wow. So I was like, all right. I go, if he can do it, I could do it. So
Yeah.
then I started going to therapy, and I didn't have anyone to go to.
Yeah.
Fortunately for me, I do have some people who are in the field, so I'll ask them questions and they kind of guide me through it. And one of them did warn me. He's like, it's going to be weird at first when you go to therapy.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's uncomfortable because you're going to go, the therapist is going to ask you questions. You're going to go into an area where you're not really comfortable to be in. And
Yeah.
he goes, you just got to go through it.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that I got that piece of information. So what I'm saying is, like, if you created a Facebook group and, other people can share their experience. Have you ever
Yeah.
thought about doing that, or have you done that?
That's a thought. I think right now I'm kind of in this place of like I'm restructuring a lot of things.
Okay.
So like I'm gonna do a new launch on the website in the next month. I'm actually gonna be launching an app with it also.
Very
and
cool.
so I'm trying to see if I could just integrate a forum in the app.
That would be perfect.
It's all in one place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So that makes a lot of sense, because I think, like you said, like, you're trying to do something, a hobby, a sport, working out, cooking. You can reach out to like 4 different people.
Yeah, absolutely.
But therapy, you're like,
you're
like, okay. And what's interesting, because when speaking to other therapists, when they get referrals, or what should I say? I remember when I spoke to a therapist, she's like, I get a lot of referrals, but most of the time the people that refer, they don't, like, the new customer or new client will be like, oh, my friend referred me. They'll never mention their name.
Yeah.
Right? Because it almost, the stigma is starting to go away, but it's still kind of there.
Oh yeah.
Right. It's there, but it's getting better. But like, I'm an advocate, and I'm like, I went to therapy. I'm not shy about it, but other people are.
Yeah.
So I think that's important for, at least like online. It's kind of like anonymous. You don't know know that person, and especially if your family finds out. If you're not like, if I've got a very strong personality, and I'm very independent. So whenever anyone tries to give me any lip, I'm like, it doesn't bother me.
Yeah.
Because I always tell them, I goes, your opinion doesn't pay my bills.
Yeah.
So you can think whatever you want, but it is what it is. And I'm sometimes cold-hearted and ruthless like that, but not everyone's like that. Some people are very, shy about it. They're not confident like, I can be. So I think that would be an awesome thing to have, like that forum and the app. That's pretty cool. So you're going to relaunch your website. I'm interested about this. So when is that going to happen? And what made you want to do that?
Yeah. So it's probably going to launch, I want to say, at the end of the month.
Okay.
The reason why I had to relaunch it, so I'm on this is a third version of the website.
Okay.
So I'm really big on user experience and making things as easy as possible and things being seamless. And I had purchased these WordPress themes and plugins to do the directory.
Okay.
And it just wasn't as seamless as I wanted it to be. So now I found a software company that's actually creating the software for me to make it a much better experience for people.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
And do you think that, because obviously I'm always thinking about how to selfishly market myself, have an FAQ for insurance and other stuff where someone like myself or another company or business that falls in that category could advertise on your site?
Yeah, absolutely. So the new website is going to have pages, spaces for banners and stuff like that. Especially because I would say this first year I've functioned at a loss.
Okay.
The entire time. And so in order for me to actually be able to help my community and be a resource, I need to find a way to flip it.
Got it.
Or at least be even, right?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So, because everything's been out of pocket for me so far. And so, expanding. So now I'm going to have therapists listed, life coaches, The other ones are more of like nonprofit stuff, but
Okay.
those are the two where I can charge for their listings to be on there.
Got it.
And then they could also pay extra to be like featured at the top of the search. Yeah.
Very cool. So cool. So someone can pay to have themselves be on the top of the search page.
Yeah.
That'll help you out.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, running a website, I mean, I don't know if I have very little experience. I have a website. It's super basic, like
Yeah.
2007 basic.
Okay.
What's the main major costs of actually running the site besides your hosting and your domain and things like that?
I think it depends on the level of like, can you do website work yourself, or are you going to outsource it? So if you're outsourcing it, that's probably going to be the highest cost.
Yeah.
After that, I would say it really depends because there's so many aspects to website, right? So like whether it's you're purchasing like a really high-end template, right? If you're on WordPress, or if you're paying for traffic, right? Like through Google or through Facebook for people to visit your site.
Okay.
That'll,
advertisements.
that costs money too. So people don't realize like you can't just build your website and let it sit. Like it's not. Like if you built a storefront, right? Like a brick and mortar store, you're not just going to open it and be like, walk away from it. Right. And so it's the same thing with websites. If you build your website online, that's your brick and mortar online. So how are you going to get people to go visit your store, right? Physically, we do a lot of like people will do flyers or their banners or things like that. Well, you want to think of Google ads or Facebook ads in the same way of like you're doing the same thing. It's just online.
Got it.
Yeah.
Very cool. Where do you see yourself once you develop the app? How do you see yourself expanding I don't want to call it the website anymore, but expanding on what you've developed?
Yeah. So I feel like I have a few phases in my head of like the website relaunch, then the app, and then I really want to focus a lot more on content.
Okay.
So I do want to start doing a podcast and videos, having therapists share like why did they get into the field, how they got into the field, and having people share their stories. So throughout this whole year, I've gotten on the phone and talked to so many people across the country.
Oh, very
just
nice.
Sharing their story with me of like, this is why I go to therapy, or this is what happened to me, or, this has helped me along the way. And so I think like you mentioned earlier, like being able to have that reference point, right, of different people sharing their insight, I think really helps to fight that stigma.
Yeah. I know even with the internet, if I can't figure it out on my own, I usually refer to Google and YouTube.
Yeah.
If someone hasn't made a video on how to fix something or do something, actually take that back. There's so many videos on YouTube on how to fix stuff and do things like on Excel, how to start a podcast. Everything. So till this day, I'm still a little old school. I like to have a reference, like to call, hey, do you know how to do this real quick? Like, well, why didn't you Google it? Well, I did Google it, but I still didn't, get the information. And I think we're in that, right in the beginning stages of, really getting it out there and open so people can share their stories about therapy, because there was a big stigma. And in our community, when people heard about you going to therapy, like, oh, what's wrong with him?
Mm-hmm.
And then I don't know how to react to that, because, I may have reacted that way in the past after, before going to therapy. And it just sucks.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that the internet is here and people who are very shy have that resource. And I'm super happy you've created something that a lot of people have, sought after, because, a lot of stuff can be avoided if they get help in therapy.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I've experienced one of my best friends committed suicide also. So I know exactly like the feeling. I remember when we were, it was we're I'm in a fraternity, so he was one of my fraternity brothers. When I was going through my rough patch in life, he was the one that kind of always, made me happy. Would go out. I told him like, hey, dude, I don't have money to go out. He, no, don't worry about it. I'll take care of you.
Yeah.
And I remember I even told him, because don't worry, as soon as I get back on my feet, I'd pay you back. And eventually I did, and then I remember being at work and I got that phone call.
Yeah.
And it's my buddies is like, hey, and I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but Will passed away. And I just stopped. Like it's just doom. And I just didn't know how to react. I was kind of like, no, this is not true. It didn't happen.
Stage 1
right?
denial.
Like it's it didn't happen. So at the time I was at work, I would take the bus, and I had a coworker. I was like, hey, can you do me a favor? Can you take me home? And so she took me home. I got in my car. I drove to my friend's house. I walked in to the gate, and as soon as I make that left to walk towards his house, I see my group of friends. They all just look at me. I looked at them, and I'm like, oh no, it happened.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, all right, now we gotta deal with it. Like that was it. Like it wasn't, I don't. It bugs. It saddens me because I was just like, why didn't he ask for help?
Yeah.
Have you, do you, from your experience from working with many people, has anyone ever openly told you before, like why they didn't want to get help in the beginning, or why they didn't want to get help or anything like that?
I feel like the stigma, and even like from my own experience, I can say like the stigma of it, or feeling like a burden, like, oh, other people are already dealing with things, like I don't want to add more, right? But I think, when you're in that space, you're just in such a dark space that you don't see any ounce of light. You don't see a possibility out of it. And so,
Okay.
yeah.
Wow. Well, aside from dealing with all this dark stuff, because I don't want to be all dark night here. When you're having a bad day, what's something that you like to do to relax?
Yeah. For me, I just feel like being real about it. I think a lot of people like to be like, oh, especially with Instagram and social media, right? Where like there's so much pressure to be happy and, be uplifting and all of this stuff. Like if I'm having a bad day, especially now, I kind of have a system like with my partner, he'll just, if he knows I'm having an off day, he'll be like, hey, 1 through 10, how are you feeling? Where's your mental health at? I'll be like, I'm like at a 1. Today is not a good day. And having, I feel like you don't need to get support from a lot of people. If you have like 1 or 2 good people in your life that you feel safe with, and being like, hey, I kind of need you to check in on me from time to time. I feel like that supports so much. But for me, if I'm sad, I will be sad. Like I'm of the belief of like the only way out is through, right? So like the only way to let go of that feeling is allowing yourself to be with it, right? So like if I'm sad, I try to do my best to like, take care of my responsibilities and make time so that I can be alone.
Got it.
And, I'll be at home, and I'm a big bookworm, so I like to read, or I'll binge watch like Scandal or something. I love Olivia Pope.
Gotta love Netflix. You could just binge watch a bunch of shows.
Yeah.
That's cool. I mean, personally, when I've never heard someone say like, yeah, if I'm sad, I'm just gonna be sad. That's like you said be right.
No, I said the only way out is through. So
the only way out is through.
Yeah. And I know that that's a little unconventional. Like most people like want to be like, no, I want to get happy right away. And to me, I just feel like I know it's going to pass.
Got it.
So I'm going to make space for it to just pass through me. And then once I'm ready, then.
Very cool. That's a different perspective as far as how to deal with it. If it works for you, that's awesome.
I feel like if I'm in a space where I do need to be a little more proactive about it, I definitely try to spend time in getting some sun.
Okay.
So even something as easy as like sitting on my porch or being outside, going for a walk is a big one.
Okay.
So obviously, if you're feeling sad, the last thing you want to do is go running or like exercise at the gym, right? So doing something as simple as going for a walk, and maybe if you are open to it, like asking somebody you love to like come on a walk with you, right?
Got it.
So those are kind of two of the things that I do if I need to be a little bit more proactive. And now I'm just more at a point of like, if I go to therapy once a week. And so if it's really bad and I feel like, hey, I need another session in a week, then like making that phone call or finding a support group to go to.
Very nice. That's a great way. I hope people who are listening or watching, whichever one you are, you hear this, that, it's okay. There's different ways of coping. There's no right or wrong way. I think that's the thing where like, oh, well, I mean, I can easily say, well, like when I get sad, like I go for a run, right?
Yeah.
That's how I deal with it.
Yeah.
Or I haven't been sad lately. I do get pissed off a lot.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to like business. And I got to deal with shady agents who try to steal my customers and then just think they're not going to get caught. What do you think you're not going to get caught? Anyways, I cope with that, but I use the gym.
Yeah.
I'm a big gym rat. That's how I cope with things. But I'm glad you share that. Hopefully that people are hearing that if they have the same way of doing that, it's okay.
Yeah.
And don't let anyone judge you. Because remember, their judgment doesn't pay your bills. So, Boyle Heights, since I've been here, I have yet to be disappointed with the food. What are your favorite foods to eat here in the city?
Oh, man. Okay, so this is tricky because I just found out like in the last month and a half that I have an allergy to wheat, eggs, dairy, soy, and peanuts.
I just died.
Yeah. That's how I felt. I was like, I'm not going to have flan anymore.
Are you just gonna eat dirt and breathe?
Well, I've been really lucky, especially now that there's more talk about like vegan food and being plant-based. So my diet's really odd though, because like I eat mainly plant-based now, but I can have protein. So I can have I could still, thank God, have steak and chicken.
Yes.
But I've been able to follow people like Jocelyn from Todo Verde, who her food is so delicious that you don't even really notice that it doesn't have meat. But, I follow her stuff. But I'll share a little bit previous to my finding out about my allergy. Definitely el tepeyac.
Okay.
I love like the Hollenbach burritos are so good. What else? There's a new restaurant actually that opened up called, oh my God, why can't I think of it? It's on Chavez, Milpa Grill.
Okay.
And that's a lot healthier alternative. So they do these like bowls with veggies, grilled corn, and chicken, black beans. It's really good.
Nice.
It's on like Chavez and Mott, I want to say. Yeah, so those are like two of my favorites.
Those are your favorites?
Yeah.
What I've had so far that have been my favorite, the carne asada burrito at Cinco Puntos.
Oh, yeah, Cinco Puntos is good. I also like Zamora Brothers.
I've never been there.
So Zamora Brothers is very similar to Cinco Puntos.
Okay.
So I feel like my family, we're walking distance from Cinco Puntos. So all of our like masa and carnitas growing up was from there. But I feel like lately it's gotten so busy. A lot more people are coming to it. It's a little bit different.
Got it.
And so I've been going to Zamora Brothers now.
Okay.
Yeah. But they have the same setup where it's like, you go pick your carnitas and you get your handmade tortillas and your salsas. And
the salsa at Cinco Puntos is pretty good.
Yeah.
And then another good place that I like here is it's a marisco place.
Is it Cuatro Vientos?
Yes. Cuatro Vientos. Their fried shrimp tacos are bomb.
Yeah.
Those, oh man, the aguas chile are pretty bomb. And where else have I been? Oh, it's La Estrella.
I haven't been to that one.
Haven't been there?
Yeah.
It's pretty good.
Okay.
Their tacos are pretty good. They had a good taco stand called TJ Tacos right there at the car wash right here on Lorena and Whittier.
Okay.
But they moved. They moved to a different area.
Okay.
But yeah, that's probably my favorite places to eat in this wonderful city of Boyle Heights. If you're like another part of LA, you probably think like Boyle Heights is like super far. It really isn't. It's actually relatively close. It's just the traffic. But Boyle Heights is like Mexico, just a little bit more cleaner. Actually, a lot cleaner than Mexico. But I highly recommend to come out here and taste and have food. You won't be disappointed on anything that you eat here.
Yeah.
So, now back to, you said you watched a lot of Netflix.
Yeah.
What's the last show you've like binged on?
Which one? I don't know, because lately I feel like I've been seeing different channels, or different like streaming services, but Game of Thrones, of course. I watched it. I was so disappointed because I started watching it like the very first year it came out.
Okay.
I've been with it for like 8 years.
Got it.
And so it was really funny because my partner, he just started watching it like a month ago. And so when the ending came out, he's like, and I was like, no, you don't get it. I invested like 8 years of my life into this show. So it was, I think, extra disappointing if you had been watching it for a really long time.
I started watching it season 4.
Okay.
So I had to catch up from 1 to 3. I lived with my buddy for a long time, for 9 years, and he's still a big dork.
Yeah.
And he loves shows and movies, and anytime he'd watch something, he'd tell me to watch it. I'd watch it, and I'm like, man, this is stupid. So like, he lost a lot of credibility with me with certain shows.
Okay.
So, but then he got me hooked on Entourage, and he tried to get me hooked on Game of Thrones. I'm just like, nah, it looks stupid. So then, at the time, my girlfriend, now fiance, she started watching it. So she started watching it, and she started liking it, and I'm like, nah. Like, I would keep myself busy.
Yeah.
And then I started kind of watching it with her, and she tells me, she goes, no, this is a really good show. I'm like, okay. My girlfriend's fiance has some pretty good taste of shows and movies. I'm going to watch it.
Yeah.
And I started watching season 1. I'm like, okay. Episode 1, I'm like, I'm liking this. 2, 3, and I'm just like, all right, this is good. And I started seeing, saw season 1. I was like, okay, it's season 2. And then what's funny is that I was watching season 3 right when Robb Stark was like battling, and he's going to go to, he meets his wife. And then out of nowhere, my fiance just passed by like, oh, too bad they don't stay together. Like, what? What? Shut your mouth! Don't be ruining stuff. Like, God, stop it. And then she left, and I'm just like, I didn't think about it too much. And then 2 episodes later, it's the Red Wedding.
Yeah.
And no, I enjoyed the show. I'm okay with the ending. It is what it is. I mean, Jon Snow got duped.
Totally.
Wow.
Yeah.
Duped. Just, man, that sucks.
Yeah.
Whatever.
The whole season just felt really rushed.
The last episode felt very rushed.
Yeah.
I wish the White Walkers would have won.
Well, I was surprised, like, 8 seasons of a build-up with the White Walkers, and then in one episode, that was it.
Yeah.
I thought it was going to be a couple more episodes, like, showing the battle and, like, yeah.
The White Walkers should have won.
Yeah.
I would have been happy with that.
Did you see the documentary afterwards, like, the following week?
No.
It was really cool. They showed, like, the set, where they built it, what that was like a lot of the behind the scenes. It was really cool.
I gotta look it up now.
I'm a big nerd, though, so I like that kind of stuff.
So closing, we sat here. We got to see this awesome view of Boyle Heights, downtown LA. We talked about therapy. Talked about your site. You're not going to make it. You do a relaunch, have an app. We talked about food, how you're not allergic to a lot of the best, delicious food. And
I know.
You had the different lifestyle. I sometimes think, I'm like, look, there's a lot of things I think now that I thought completely different when I was younger,
For sure.
right? Like when I was 20, 21, like I just thought you were corny if you went to Disneyland all the time. Like, oh my God, who goes to Disneyland, right? Corny people. People who watch wrestling, like WWE men who would watch wrestling. Um, I would always just think like, oh my God, like you haven't grown up. And now that I just sit back and I realize I'm like, wow, that was really stupid of me, very ignorant. You know, I had a season pass for Disneyland. I'm like, now I understand, right? I
Yeah.
understand all these different things. And wrestling, it's just a male soap opera. And some people just gravitate to it and they like it.
Yeah.
It just is what it is. Now that you've kind of gone through all these experiences, would you have wish you had someone when you were younger to teach you this, or do you think everything that you went through leading up to today happened for a reason?
I feel both. And I have this conversation all the time because for me, like, I grew up without my parents. My grandma obviously had very limited income when we were growing up. So there's a lot of things that, like, I had to grow up really, like, quickly.
Yeah.
Where I see, or I have friends that like have really good relationships with their parents, or have parents that are like, hey, here's seed money for your business. Or, if they kind of have some kind of, financial difficulty where their parents can back them. I have never known what that feels like, right? So there's that part of me that's like, God, like, I wonder what that feels like, right? Like having that kind of support. But then also I know that all of those things is so much of what has shaped me, right? So it's like, I don't know, I feel both.
Got it.
Yeah.
I can relate to that because, yeah, we always think the grass is greener on the other side. I'm like, oh, that'd be so cool if my mom would give me $5,000 to start my business, right?
Yeah.
But I don't. I used to think that way,
Yeah.
and now that I'm older, I'm gonna realize my parents instilled in me how to be independent
Yeah.
and how to work hard.
Yeah.
And I think without that, I wouldn't have been able to have the lifestyle that I have now. And I mean, I've had a great life. And I think a lot of the stuff that, the disciplines that I've got were from not by choice. It was by, I had to.
Yeah.
I'm going to be very disciplined. I'm like, no, I had to be disciplined. I had to be very, methodical and thoughtful in everything that I did. So I had to credit my parents for that, So and now it's going to be different, like I know once I have kids, it will probably be a lot different.
Yeah.
They may or may not get $5,000 from me, but it's hard because everything like, well, am I going to spoil them? Like, am I going to make it?
I'm the opposite.
Right.
I
Is
feel
it gonna
like
be
I
easier?
used to think that way. And now I'm like, especially the more I educate myself about finances and especially with around tech, I'm all about generational wealth. And like, how can I leave my family like as much property and like income as possible? But then also like, how do you transfer those values, right? So I think if you are able to somehow transfer those values and like have money support the values, and I think you're good. Because I mean, I don't know, I just think of like, I see a lot of other communities, and for me, I'm really big on data, right? So I always look at like representation and like all these different things. Like everyone's really excited about AI right now, but they don't realize like the community it's going to affect the most is Black and brown, right? So like, how many jobs are going to be gone overnight when AI really starts coming out?
Yeah.
And so if we have that money that we could leave, the next generation, like I'm huge on life insurance, huge on that. I wish like every Latinx person I knew had life insurance, because think of how much that would change our community completely, And I think for me, like I grew up just like you, like having to do things because we need to survive, right? And so when you stop focusing on survival, when like all your basic needs are met, then it breeds opportunity for like creativity, for entrepreneurship, for innovation, right? So like if I could leave money to my family or at least property, then I think of like how much innovation can be brought into the world through the Latinx eyes.
Nice. That's true. Because, yeah, it's nothing like a nice 200 or $1 million life insurance policy that pays out when someone passes away. That's life changing.
Yeah. And I think in our community, like people are always like, I hear that a lot of like, oh, I don't want to leave money and like have my kids be spoiled or this or that. Or they think it's about the money, but it's so much more than that. Like I think of when my grandfather passed away, we were like, oh shit, the funeral is like $14,000. Like who, like there was nobody in my family that was like, oh, it's cool, I got it.
Yeah.
Not one person, right? And so when you're grieving already, having to think of bills and like
It's hard.
it's hard.
Very hard.
Yeah.
So I yeah, I know that. And what I meant, like, I'm like, of course I'm gonna leave my kids whatever I earn, but like,
Yeah.
I learned this from someone else when when Latinos or most people, I don't want to say Latinos, but most people, whenever someone says, hey, you're at the store and the kid says, I want this, and your parents' normal response is like, no, you don't need that.
Yeah.
And the kid's like, no, I do need that.
Yeah.
No, you don't.
Yeah.
So he said this, and I was like, you don't respond like that. You respond with, have you earned it?
Yeah.
And then the kid starts to think, well, what do I have to do? Like, no or yes or whatever they would say. No. I'm like, all right, cool. You haven't earned
Yeah.
it. Yes. Okay. What did you do to earn it? I did this. Nope. Then you can set, rules, right? Like,
Yeah.
okay, you want this toy. This requires X amount of work, and you've earned that toy.
Yeah.
So you kind of take away, you add value, right, to something. So there's some things like, kids need to understand the value that things cost money.
Yeah.
And in order to make money or to have money, you need to earn it.
Yeah.
So I think I plan to do that. So I'm just like, oh, if my son my kids have an idea to start a business, I'm like, oh, I know I can find it. But at the same time, I'm like, no, I want you to go out and be scrappy.
Well, if they do have a business idea, you need to be like, all right, create your business plan. Okay, create that. Like I even do that with my website clients. Like I give them a brand questionnaire. I will not work with them unless I know their brand story. So you just have to put little obstacles for people to like filter themselves out, right?
Got it.
So
Filter themselves out. I'm the king of that, especially like for here. Like I'm just like, let's see how serious you are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Nice. Well, thank you so much for coming over here. I hope you enjoyed the view.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
If you guys have any questions for Brandi and her website, where can they find you?
So I'm on Instagram under Therapy for Latinx, and it's all spelled out.
Got it.
Or you can find my personal Instagram. I am Brandi Carlos, but I spell Brandi with an IE.
Got it.
So,
Cool.
yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.